stop what you are doing for a moment. Just stop. Put everything else down. Because what I am about to say to you in this reading is not the kind of thing that lands well when you are only half paying attention, and you deserve to receive it fully rather than in pieces between other things. I know you are hurting right now. I know the specific quality of this particular kind of pain, the way it does not simply sit in one place but moves through your whole body at different moments of the day, arriving in your chest when you wake up before you have even fully remembered why, settling into your throat when a song comes on unexpectedly, landing in your stomach at night when the house gets quiet and there is nothing left to distract you from the fact that someone is simply gone from your life now. I know that kind of hurt, and I want you to know that the cards today see it clearly and are not asking you to minimize it or move past it faster than you actually can. What they are asking is something different, and I will get there. But first, I want to sit with you in this for a moment, because you have probably been surrounded by people who mean well, but who are already pushing you toward, okay, when you are genuinely not there yet. And I think you needed someone to simply acknowledge that first before offering anything else. Let me describe what I felt the moment I opened this energy for you, because the first impressions were immediate and specific. I felt weight first. The particular heaviness of someone who has been carrying something they did not choose to carry, a grief that arrived not through any failure of their own, but simply through the ending of something that mattered. I also felt underneath that weight something else that surprised me slightly in its clarity. I felt dignity, the quiet, steady kind that does not announce itself but is simply present, running underneath everything else like a current that has not been broken even by what has broken around it. That detail is important. I want to come back to it. The first card in this reading shows a scene of devastation, and I am not going to soften that. 10 blades planted in a figure, lying still on the ground, a dark sky overhead, the appearance of total ruin. This card does not ask you to pretend what happened was small. It does not offer you the comfort of minimization. It simply shows the ending exactly as it is, without decoration, without false comfort, without telling you that you should be feeling something other than what you are actually feeling. What this card also shows, and this is the part that matters deeply, is a horizon, a thin strip of golden light beginning at the very edge of the image, barely visible beneath the darkness of the sky above it. The devastation is real, and the dawn is also real. Both things exist in the same image simultaneously, not because the devastation was not as bad as it seemed, but because devastation and dawn genuinely coexist. The light does not cancel the wound. It simply confirms that the wound is not the final word. I want to speak to the numerology of this card for a moment because it holds something useful. The number 10 in this suit represents the absolute completion of a cycle. Not a pause, not a setback, but an actual ending. And in the language of the cards, when a cycle completes at its most intense point, what follows is not more of the same, but something genuinely different, something that could not have begun while the cycle was still running. I am sensing this ending, as painful as it is genuinely clearing ground for something that had no room to grow while this relationship was still occupying the space it held in your life. The second card I pulled for you today shows a figure in voluntary stillness, someone who has retreated inward, who has chosen solitude not as punishment but as sanctuary. This is not isolation born of defeat. This is the deliberate turning inward of someone who understands on some level, even if only instinctively, that what they are processing right now cannot be processed in the noise of ordinary daily life. It requires quiet, it requires interiority, It requires exactly the kind of stillness that most of the people around you are probably trying to pull you out of too quickly. I want to give you permission to be in this stillness for as long as you genuinely need to be. Not indefinitely, because the cards also speak to movement ahead, but right now, in this specific window, the withdrawal is not weakness. The hermit energy does not belong to someone who has given up. It belongs to someone who is doing the slower, less visible, more essential work of actually integrating what has happened rather than simply performing recovery for the benefit of everyone around them. I also want to speak to what this card tends to illuminate about the specific kind of processing that happens in stillness, because I think it matters for you in particular. The figure depicted carries their own light, a lantern held outward in the darkness. This tells me something important. Even in your most difficult moments right now, even when the pain feels like it is obscuring everything, you have not actually lost access to your own clarity. Your light is still present. It may feel diminished. It may feel hard to locate, but the card is showing it to me clearly, and I want you to trust that it has not gone out. I want to add something further about the specific quality of this withdrawal that I think deserves naming, because I am sensing it for you distinctly. The kind of solitude this card describes is not passive. It is not simply sitting with pain and waiting for it to pass. There is something active happening inside it, a turning inward that has real, if invisible, work attached to it. You are processing things in layers during this time, things that are not available to language yet, things that will only become articulable after they have been fully felt in the body first. I want you to trust that process even when it does not look like progress from the outside, even when the people around you cannot see what is happening, because what is happening has no visible form yet. Does this feel like it is speaking to where you actually are right now, Virgo? Are you in that stillness, that necessary withdrawal, and finding that the people around you do not entirely understand why you cannot simply bounce back faster? Let me know in the comments. I find that reading others going through similar things can be one of the quiet reliefs available during a time like this one. The third card I want to address shows something that I think is going to be one of the most important things in this reading for you, and I want to make sure I give it the space it deserves. This card shows a figure seated between two stone pillars, blindfolded, holding two swords crossed over their chest in a posture of deliberate self-protection. They are balanced on that seat, genuinely stable, but the crossed blades are a wall. The blindfold means they cannot see what is on either side of them. The stability is real, but it has come at the cost of perception. I am sensing this speaks to something happening in your thinking about this breakup right now, a particular kind of mental holding pattern where you are in a kind of stasis around the meaning of it, not moving toward grief and not moving toward acceptance, but suspended between them, protected by a position that feels like stillness, but is actually avoidance of a different kind than the intentional stillness of the previous card. This one is more specifically about not wanting to look at something. I want to ask you gently, Virgo, what is it that you are not quite willing to look at yet? Because I am sensing there is something underneath the primary pain of losing this person, some secondary truth about the relationship itself or about yourself within it that is sitting right at the edge of your awareness, and that you have been keeping your eyes closed to, not because you are in denial exactly, but because looking at it directly feels like it would require something of you that you are not yet ready to give. I am not going to push you toward that thing. I simply want to name that it is there. And I want to suggest that when you are ready, when the timing feels right rather than forced, allowing yourself to look at it will actually move some of the weight you are carrying rather than adding to it. The truth of what this relationship actually was, held honestly rather than either idealized or vilified, tends to be what genuinely frees people rather than what traps them. The suspended state, the crossed swords, the blindfold, these cost more energy than seeing clearly does. Even when what you see is painful, inhale with me for a moment, because I want to move now into something that I think is genuinely important for you to hear, and I want you to be as present as possible when it lands. The fourth card in this reading shows a figure standing at the edge of a cliff, one foot extended over empty air, a small pack on their back, a flower in their hand, looking upward rather than down at the drop below them. This is the energy of someone at the beginning of everything, carrying only what matters, oriented toward the open sky rather than the ledge beneath their feet. I want to be honest with you about something. I know this card can feel like an insult when you are in the middle of genuine grief. I know that hearing new beginnings while you are still sitting in the rubble of an ending can feel dismissive of the very real pain you are currently living inside. I am not going to tell you that this breakup was a gift wrapped in disguise, because I think that framing minimizes real loss in a way that does not actually serve healing. What I will tell you is what I am actually sensing. There is something ahead of you that could not have reached you through this relationship. I do not know its full shape yet because it is still forming, but I am sensing that the life available to you on the other side of this particular ending is genuinely larger than the one this connection was holding you within. Not because the relationship was worthless, but because you are someone who needs more room than it was capable of offering you. And that need for room, that particular quality of expansion you carry, was always going to eventually press against the edges of what this connection could hold. I want to expand on this because I think it deserves more than a single statement. I am sensing that within this relationship, without perhaps consciously realizing it, you had been making yourself slightly smaller in certain ways, not dramatically, not in ways that were immediately obvious, but in the subtle, accumulated ways that happen when we stay in something that does not fully see us, when we adjust ourselves around another person's limitations rather than being fully met in our own depth. Some part of you knew this, some part of you has always known this. And I believe part of what makes this ending so painful is not only the loss of the person, but the grief of finally acknowledging what was quietly being asked of you within the connection and what you were quietly giving up in order to remain in it. This is not blame. It is not an indictment of this person or of you. It is simply what tends to happen when two people who genuinely care for each other are not ultimately the right fit for each other's full becoming. And your full becoming, Virgo, is something the cards are pointing toward with real insistence today. I want to address something specific about the Virgo experience of heartbreak because I think it is distinctive enough to deserve direct attention rather than general platitudes. Virgo processes pain through analysis. This is both a remarkable gift and a particular kind of trap during grief. The analytical mind wants to understand what happened, wants to locate the precise cause, wants to assess what could have been done differently, wants to build a complete and coherent picture of why this ended so that it can file it away neatly and move forward. And I am sensing that part of your mind has been working very hard since this breakup, constructing timelines, revisiting conversations, looking for the moment or the pattern that explains everything. I want to gently redirect that analytical energy for a moment, not to shut it down, because it is one of your genuine strengths, but to point it in a direction that will actually serve you better than the retrospective analysis of what went wrong. There is a particular cruelty in the way Virgo grief tends to operate, and I want to name it because I think being seen in it is part of what helps. While other signs might lean into the messiness of heartbreak more freely, expressing it loudly, wearing it visibly, reaching outward toward others for comfort in obvious ways, Virgo tends to turn the pain inward and simultaneously upward into the analytical mind, where it becomes a project, a problem to be understood and therefore solved. And what this means in practice is that you are often doing two kinds of suffering simultaneously: the raw grief that lives in the body and the exhausting mental labor of trying to think your way through something that thinking alone cannot resolve. I am sensing you have been doing this, running the same sequences of memory through your mind, the same conversations, the same moments where things shifted, trying to find the exact place where it went wrong, as though locating that place would somehow ease what you are carrying now. I want to tell you gently that it will not. Understanding the mechanics of how something ended does not remove the grief of its ending. Those are two separate things, and the mind's attempt to solve the second through the first is one of the most exhausting loops a Virgo can find themselves inside. The most useful question for your particular mind right now is not why did this end, but rather what do I want the next chapter of my life to actually contain. Not in reaction to this, not as a corrective to what was missing in this relationship, but genuinely and positively from a place of clarity rather than wound. What would genuinely sustain you? What do you actually need? Not what you have been conditioned to accept as realistic, but what your deepest self has always known it needed and has perhaps not always been bold enough to hold out for. That question, directed forward rather than backward, is where your analytical depth becomes genuinely powerful rather than simply painful. I want to speak to the fifth card now because it arrived in a position that surprised me, and I think it carries something essential for this reading. This card shows a cup, a single vessel, overflowing with streams of water, held by an unseen hand descending from a cloud, a dove carrying something toward it. This is the card of the beginning of emotional possibility. Not emotional achievement, not love already arrived, but the genuine, undeniable presence of capacity for it. The cup is not empty. The cup is overflowing. I am sensing this card is showing me something about you that the breakup has perhaps temporarily obscured but has not actually diminished. Your capacity for love has not been used up by this relationship. Your ability to feel deeply, to connect genuinely, to give fully, these are not resources that deplete through grief. They are qualities that belong to you, independent of the person you are giving them to. Everything you poured into this connection is still inside you. It returned to you the moment the connection ended, and it will eventually find somewhere new to go, somewhere that receives it more fully and reflects it more honestly back toward you. The dove in this image is carrying an offering, something small, something symbolic, arriving alongside the overflow rather than causing it. I am sensing that what is coming for you is not a compensation for this loss, but something genuinely its own, something that will eventually make sense, not as a replacement, but as a destination you could not have recognized until you had arrived here first. I want to close this reading by saying something I mean genuinely, without performance and without the kind of false comfort that sounds nice but does not actually land in the body. You are going to be okay. Not immediately, and not in the way that requires pretending the pain was smaller than it was or that the ending was easier than it is, but genuinely, deeply, in the way that comes from having been through something real and having come out the other side with your capacity for love still intact and your sense of your own worth still present underneath everything. The cards today showed me someone in real pain, and they also showed me someone whose light is still burning, whose dignity is still present, and whose future has not been closed by this ending, but has been, in ways you cannot yet see clearly, opened. Stay in the stillness as long as you need to. Let the analytical mind rest from the backward-looking question and begin, gently and without pressure, to turn toward the forward-looking one. And trust that what is ahead is genuinely worth the difficulty of what it takes to get there. If this reading reached something real in you today, please share it with a Virgo who might need to hear that their pain is seen and that their light has not gone out. And leave me a comment. I want to hear how you are doing. Genuinely, not the performing fine version of how you are doing. I read every single one, and I hold your stories with real care long after this video has ended. Until next time, Virgo, you did not lose yourself in this ending. You are still here, all of you, and that is more than enough to begin again.